Welcome back to yet another edition of Bhutan This Week, our weekly news magazine program with me, Tandon Finso. Our top stories: His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen was in the Indian capital New Delhi on a 5-day official visit. His Majesty the King met the President and the Prime Minister of India on Tuesday. And His Majesty the King also granted an audience to the leader of the opposition of Rajya Sabha, Arun Jaitley. His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen was in the Indian capital New Delhi on a 5-day official visit.
His Majesty and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen left on an official visit to the Indian capital New Delhi on the invitation of the President of India, Dr. Pranab Mukherjee. Upon the invitation of the President of India, Dr. Pranab Mukherjee, His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen are residing at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the official residence of the President. Their Majesties are the first state guests in 10 years to be hosted at the newly refurbished guest wing, which last hosted a head of state in 2004. His Majesty granted an audience to India's Foreign Secretary Sujata Singh, the National Security Advisor Shiv Shankar Menon, and the Chief Army Staff General Bikram Singh. His Majesty is accompanied by the Home and Cultural Affairs Minister Damche Doji, Foreign Minister Rinzin Doji, Economic Affairs Minister Nobu Wanchu, and other senior officials of the royal government.
His Majesty the King met the President and the Prime Minister of India on Tuesday. His Majesty also granted an audience to some of the ministers.
His Majesty the King met with the Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, today. In honor of His Majesty the King, a private luncheon was also hosted by the Prime Minister. The chairperson of the United Progressive Alliance, Sonia Gandhi, and other Indian ministers also joined the luncheon. His Majesty the King even met the UPA chairperson Sonia Gandhi at her residence and also the Vice President of India, Muhammad Hamid Ansari, at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Earlier today, His Majesty the King granted an audience to the External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid, the Minister of Commerce and Industry Anand Sharma, and the Finance Minister P. Chidambaram.
His Majesty the King also granted an audience to the leader of the opposition of Rajya Sabha, Arun Jaitley. Besides the Indian leaders and senior government officials, His Majesty the King also granted audience to well-wishers of Bhutan.
His Majesty the King granted an audience to the leader of the opposition of Rajya Sabha, Arun Jaitley. Besides the Indian leaders and senior government officials, His Majesty the King also granted audience to well-wishers of Bhutan. Meanwhile, His Majesty the King graced a dinner hosted by the President of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan yesterday in honor of His Majesty the King. His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen were received by the President Pranab Mukherjee in the evening at the Grand Ashoka Hall of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The reception began with national anthem of the two countries, followed by the presentation of the delegates of the two countries. First, the Indian guests were introduced to His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen. Similarly, Bhutanese guests were introduced to the President of India. The reception was followed by dinner.
Meanwhile, His Majesty the King granted an audience to the Indian Home Minister Sushil Kumar Shinde at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This was followed by an audience to the Vice President of the Indian National Congress Party, Rahul Gandhi.
His Majesty the King also granted an audience to members of the India-Bhutan Friendship Association. The delegates were led by the President of the association. The founder and General Secretary R.N. Anil was also part of the delegation. R.N. Anil was awarded the Druk Thukse Medal on the National Day last year in recognition of his long and continued services to further the bonds of friendship between Bhutan and India. The President of India hosted a farewell tea for His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen, following which Their Majesties visited the famous Mughal garden of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Besides roses, the 16-acre presidential garden is home to bougainvillea, marigold, tulips, lilies and many more flowers. Their Majesties are scheduled to arrive in Bhutan tomorrow. Compiled for Pema Tsoki, Sonom Rinchen for BBS News.
Two applicants who were shortlisted to set up private television stations in the country are waiting for approval from the government. The two were among 5 candidates who had applied.
The two that have been shortlisted are Singhi Group of Companies and Rapsal Media. The chairman of Singhi Group of Companies, Ugin Sachabdoji, who is not in the country at the moment, told BBS that he has been waiting for the government's approval. Rapsal Media Sangitenzin also shared the same. At mid the press session last month, Prime Minister Sring Tobgay stated that if applicants' proposals are consistent and fulfill all criteria, there is no reason for the government to reject them.
As far as we are concerned, if there is room for private TV, if there are private citizens who want to invest in private TV, if it is going to be profitable, and if their proposal is consistent, fulfills the requirements for a private TV, we have no reason to stop them. It's not for, since you heard PM, it's not for one person to decide whether it's good or bad. We have systems in place, we have rules in place, and we should follow that.
Rapsal Media reasserts that BIGMA had shortlisted Rapsal Media and Singhi Group of Companies because they fulfilled all the criteria. What remains to be seen now is if making the shortlist means just being a step away from BIGMA approving the 2 television stations.
The education city has been a topic of discussion for some time now, especially due to the legality of the proposed land near Chuzom being questioned. In an initial report on the project in September last year, the Secretary of the Land Commission said that land for Education City had not been approved. The Land Commission maintained it had not received any detailed report and that the project was illegal. Tenzin Rabge has more.
Well, I'm at Lija right now, and behind me is actually the area where the construction for the Education City road is taking place right now. They are actually constructing about 2.54 kilometers of road right now, and they've said that I talked to the engineers there, and they've said that they finished the formation cutting till right up. They say that they have a lot of evidence saying that they've corresponded with the Land Commission several times, and in fact the survey which was done at the Education City area was actually done by the Land Commission and approved by the Land Commission Secretary itself. So what we are going to do is I'll visit that area once, and let's see what's happening out there, as well as we'll talk to the Education City Secretariat, as well as try to get information from the Land Secretary and see if we can sort things out on this issue.
The Education City Secretariat maintains that basic amenities are to be provided till the border of the Education City by the government. The rest of the infrastructure inside the proposed site would have to be taken care of by a private site developer. The construction of the road towards the boundary of the Education City is in full swing. It will cost the government about 20 billion Nultrum just for the first phase of amenities.
So the proposed area for the Education City actually starts from this ridge over here, and it will move this side. This whole area is part of the Education City. If you move some more this side, you'll see that this area as well, and it moves even till this ridge over here and past that ridge, which is about 1,000 acres. Since we didn't have a guide today, it was a bit difficult to find this peg over here. But nonetheless, since we were actually looking all around the place, one of our colleagues noticed that there was a flag on a tree. So we came to that flag, and voila, this is here. And according to the Education City officials, what they've told me is that these pegs, all the demarcation for the Education City, was actually done by the National Land Commission.
Our thorough search yielded only one peg. I visited the Bhutan Education City Secretariat to ask the CEO about the legal issue with the land.
The CEO was not available for comment. But when I met him a couple of months ago, he told me that he could not make any comments without directives from the board. He said that he would get back to me, but that still hasn't happened.
I then visited the National Land Commission to see if they would tell me a little bit about what was going on. The government had asked the commission in October last year for a decision at the earliest.
Unfortunately, even officials from the National Land Commission did not have anything to say about the legality of the land. People will continue to discuss the Education City project and the legality of its land, but it is anyone's guess if the National Land Commission or the Education City Secretariat will acknowledge the elephant in the room. With cameraman Nishil Hendrup and Tinle Doji, Tenzin Rabge, BBS News.
Monetary disputes were recorded as the highest number of cases received by the judiciary in 2013. Matrimonial cases were the next highest. This has been revealed in the annual report released by the judiciary.
In the judiciary's annual report, more than 19,000 new court cases were registered last year. The highest number of cases were recorded in Thimphu, close to 6,800, followed by Phintling with over 1,300 and Paro with over 1,000 cases. The highest number of cases was monetary disputes with 6,133 cases in 2013. The second highest number of registered cases at 4,696 was matrimony related. According to a comparative study done by the judiciary, cases registered last year increased by close to 6,000, an increase of 40.12% compared to 2012. Of these, the court rendered over 19,000 decisions. Pemasuki for BBS News.
With the final 20 land cases being solved this week, Samsi town is preparing for a makeover. A new township that has been long overdue will now be developed.
After a lengthy one-day public consultation on Tuesday, the main reason for the delay in the new township was addressed. The 20 land cases have been solved, and the Dzongkhag administration is now preparing to roll out the Samsi Local Area Plan 1. This involves the development of the main core town area.
As far as Dzongkhag administration is concerned, the township issue has been quite pertinent and been long overdue, and I think it's high time that now we should accelerate and expedite the implementation of the township of the Samsi Dzongkhag. And personally, what I have done is I have committed to prioritize this and push this. At least this township is coming on the priority basis.
The new township plan, which comes after many decades, has been described as being quite unique in architecture and design. The Dzongkhag administration and the municipal office will together carry out a survey and demarcate boundaries in the core town area.
Since our lab has been approved, so as a series of action from a municipal office, we have a plan to carry out the survey and demarcation of the plots. And after the demarcation and survey is being over, so after that we will hand over the plots to the individual plots owner. And finally, after completion of all these tasks, we are expecting that we can roll out our plan for Samsi Korla.
Conceptualization of the structural plan for Samsi core town actually began in 2004, and in 2005 the plan was approved by the government. The town plan is finally expected to be completed by February. Compiled for Somfenso, Pemasuki for BBS News.
This week has been a week of celebrations in the country. This year, the Lomba, New Year and Nilo fell sequentially on the calendar. Lomba, which is an annual festival celebrated by Parops and Haps, falls on the 29th day of the 10th month in the Bhutanese calendar and is celebrated for 5 days. Families come together and feast, and the men also indulge in archery matches and other traditional games. This is a report from Paro.
Families got together in Gepte village and treated themselves to a good meal this Lomba. The men also played a 2-day archery match. 63-year-old Jyotsring says for Parobs and Habs, Lomba is a very important occasion.
Firstly, the Nyilo festival falls in this month, and in the old days we consider this the turn to the new year. It is also a time when all crops have been harvested and we get some free time before we begin our work again. These are the seasons we celebrate Lomba.
Jyotsring maintains that nothing much has changed since his childhood in the manner in which Lomba is celebrated. In fact, he shares with development arrangements for celebrations have become even easier and grander.
In the old days, when there were no motorable roads, we had to rely on our livestock for the celebration. But now we can get anything we want. So the celebrations have become more grand and lavish.
Parobs and Habs living in other Dzongkhaks also make it a point to return home for Lomba to be with their families. The Lomba, besides being a time of celebrations, is also a time to give thanks and making offerings to local deities. For Ishkelsen, Kamartsring, BVS News.
Several shops in Yonfula in Tashigang have had to close following a dearth of customers. The situation is said to have worsened, especially after the army moved away from Yonfula.
Running a shop in Yonfula in the late 90s used to be a profitable business. From just about 2 shops in the early 80s, the number of shops increased to more than 20 in the late 90s. Their main customers were army personnel. The relocation of the Royal Bhutan Army's Wing 4 to other parts of the country, therefore, meant losing a huge customer base.
My family used to run a shop since I was little. In the past, people from Utarong and Kengtongmani would come here to buy things. Business used to be good when the army was here. After they left, we lost our customers. We also closed down our shop 2 years ago and are now farming to survive.
Shopkeepers had been hopeful about good business even after the army left, with the Centenary Institute for Education taking their place. But with limited staff and a few visitors now and then during occasional workshops and seminars, the institute has not resulted in many customers.
Business is very bad now compared to the past. We are considering farming now. When the institute was established, we thought business would be good, so we bought more things to sell. Now I'm finding it difficult to clear my stock. Only a few people come to the institute and they rarely buy from us as they come with their own supplies.
No less than 10 shops had to close after the army moved away. The remaining shops are struggling to survive. Shopkeepers are now looking at other options to sustain their livelihoods. Compiled for Pema Namgi in Kanglung, Tenzin Rapki, BBS News.
The Scout Leadership Program held in Tenchling in Wangdiphodrang concluded last Sunday. The training program has been conceived and initiated by His Majesty the King.
The Scout Leadership Program is a value-based personal development program with the aim to encourage citizenry to be active in nation building. After the 2-week training, Scouts took an oath reaffirming their pledge to serve the Tsawa Sum with full loyalty and dedication. The Education Minister Mingmo Dukpa, who was the chief guest at the closing ceremony, congratulated the Scouts and shared that the values they cultivate and nurture through this training will be beneficial in the years ahead. Some Scouts that BBS spoke to shared that they learnt a lot through the program.
It was a good program. I learned so much and I can't wait to get back to school to share everything that I learned here.
I hope to share what I learn, not only with my friends, but even with my neighbors in the village.
Scouts were trained in search and rescue operations, taught the importance of preserving the country's unique cultural heritage, and also the need to conserve the environment. More than 100 youth took part in the first batch leadership program. Compiled for Kunzang Tinle in Wangdiporang, Tenzin Rapki, BBS News.
Century-old practice of pig rearing is fast disappearing in many parts of the country, and the introduction of crossbreed pigs in the country has threatened the survival of native pig species. To revive the tradition and preserve the native pig species, a farmers group has been formed in Mongka village under Uzurong Gyeok in Tashigang.
Many farmers in Tashigang used to rear pig in the past. The century-old practice is, however, disappearing. Most farmers cite religious reasons for giving up pig rearing. Even if farmers are interested, they rear only crossbreed pigs. But a group of farmers in Uzurong has been rearing the indigenous pig breeds. The native pig conservation group named Mongka Ipa Sokchong Tsokpa is helping to preserve the indigenous breed. The Department of Livestock under Ministry of Agriculture and Forest formed the group with 27 members. Currently, 32 households are involved in the group. Besides preserving the indigenous pig breed, it also helps the farmers to generate income.
If we really feed them well, then in a year we can sell around 5 pigs and earn around 50 to 60,000 nultrum. Before, it used to be difficult with sanitation problem, but now it is better. How much we earn depends on how well we feed them.
The group is currently breeding the pig breed, which is native to Uzurong Gyeok only. Each household owns between 2 to 6 pigs. The National Biodiversity Center helped the farmers in building the pig sties. Officials from the livestock department also frequently visit the village to help the farmers.
These days, there are more of imported pigs, and the native pigs are slowly vanishing. And to help preserve our own native pig breed, we are helping the farmers with support from the National Biodiversity Center.
The farmers earn 1,000 nultrum per piglet and 200 nultrum per kilogram of pork. The National Biodiversity Center will soon provide the farmers with light and water pipes to build a better drainage system in the pig sties. Cheche, BBS News, Kanglung.
The country's cricket players are saying they need a proper cricket ground. They said they are not able to practice well due to lack of proper ground, and this, they say, is affecting their performance in international matches.
The national cricket players currently practice the game at the Yangchenfu Higher Secondary School's playground, which is not even a standard training ground. They describe lack of proper training ground as a major drawback in taking forward the game. The players says practicing on uneven and dusty pitches does little help in advancing their skills, and this, they say, had taken its toll on the team's ability to perform well at the international matches.
Throughout the year, if you want to continue coaching with your side, we need a proper space, and this will not help us. Every time training in the nets will not help us. Every time training on this kind of service will not help us. So what we basically need is a ground.
Dumbar S. Gurung said grooming players with sophisticated game tactics has not been possible.
So whenever we are going outside, the biggest drawback is the game. When I lead my team, I don't go for bigger tactic things, because I know our boys or girls are not that educated or experienced enough to take that. So I basically give a simple, tactical plans, game plans, so that they can, play, at least compete with other teams. But still, it's been hard for us, to groom them in a tactical stage.
It's yet to be confirmed, but they might get a proper ground soon. Bhutan Cricket Council Board said efforts are underway to have a cricket pitch developed in Gyelephu. The Bhutan Cricket Council Board was established in 2001. Bhutan made its debut in international cricket match in 2003. Bhutan currently is ranked 48 in the world. Karmat Singh, BVS News.
That's all we have for you this week. Join us again next week for yet another edition of Bhutan This Week. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.